Welcome to Andy and Ari On3, presented by Culver's. It is draft week. We are headed to Green Bay, courtesy of Culver's. We'll be at the Great Wisconsin Tailgate Thursday and Friday. We'll have shows from just outside the frozen tundra of Lambeau Field, and it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. We'll talk some draft this week because quarterbacks seem to be moving around the board, although that is sort of the thing that people do, Ari, before the draft. Like, the draft is the one situation where nobody has to tell the truth, so you never know who's lying.
Yeah, and also, too, like, and I think I saw somebody make this point somewhere. I don't know who it was, so sorry if I'm not giving the credit, but, like, why is the draft not just in March? Like, I feel like
Because the NFL is smarter about how it spaces things out than college football is.
Yeah. But
college football is like, let's have our playoff and our free agency all at the same time.
No, I feel like the draft process is 3 weeks too long, though. Like, we know who's good, we know who's not good. Like 3 weeks ago, you could.
They're not going to stick it in the middle of March Madness. Yeah. So they're not doing that.
That's true.
Like, now, I think there's a needle to thread. If you could get the NBA and the NHL to move the start of their playoffs back a week, so you could go between the Masters and the beginning of the NBA and NHL playoffs, it'd be perfect. It'd be perfect.
Yeah, because it's just like we get to a point, and listen, it's fine where it is. Who cares? It's not a hot button issue. But like the thing that happens in pre-draft analysis is that you get to the end of the road, and then there's still a month to go before the event actually happens. So people start, overthinking things and, trying to get creative, trying to, be interesting. And, I think that this is a very typical thing. But like, what is the biggest domino that you've seen change in the draft order?
It's Shedeur Sanders allegedly sliding, but it's one of those things like he may not actually be sliding. He still may be the second quarterback off the board. He still may be a top 10 pick. Like, there are reasons if you were a team that wanted to draft Shedeur Sanders, you would spread nasty things about him because you want him to be there when you pick. Like,
and also him not going to the draft might not mean anything. I think people are reading way too much into that. Like, he might be.
I don't know that I might want to have the party at my house. I kind of like that idea.
Oh, well. Yeah, if you
look at a sweet house, I'm sure Shedeur has a sweet house.
Grab Ass Central would be like, what would your perfect draft party be?
Okay. I tell you what, we're going to talk about that on Wednesday's show. That is a topic for Wednesday's show. We have to talk about college football right now, though. I was the Dave Chappelle character on Saturday with the, like, every time a clip of Bryce Underwood got posted during the Michigan spring game. Listen, enough of this crap with the not broadcasting the spring games. Stop it. Nobody's going to steal your players because they saw 2 reps in a spring game. They already know which players of yours they want to steal. So put them on freaking TV. Like, I felt like an addict just scrolling Twitter, like Bryce Underwood video search. Like, oh, incompletion. Oh, he threw an interception. Oh, like, put it on TV. Come on.
Was the attendance higher? I mean, I know Michigan always has a great attendance, but like, were attendances across the board higher for spring games this year now that you couldn't watch a lot of them?
No, they were lower.
They were?
Yeah, that has been hilariously debunked. That's why they didn't used to put games on TV, because they're like, it'll kill attendance. No, it actually turns out to be a great advertisement for what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I just didn't know because, like, you're going to write a list or talk about a list of quarterbacks that you haven't really seen much of, who
I can't wait to see more of.
Yeah, you're scratching your neck to see more of, and like, you used to be able to watch him play on TV, and now that you can't, like, if you're in the area, if you're within a 3-hour radius of Ann Arbor and you're a Michigan fan, you might go to the game if you don't like going to games, even just to see this kid.
Well, so even if the game had been on TV, I still wouldn't have much sample size of Bryce Underwood, because it's not like their practices are public. You haven't seen, other than a couple of videos that they've sent out from spring practice. But we saw this, and look, I don't think this was the plan. Here's the trick play at the end of the spring game. This is the 88-yard touchdown. Beautiful little razzmatazz. Tight end wheel. Kind of left it short, but he caught it and outran the defense. Touchdown, Michigan. He was under 100 yards passing before that.
Yeah. And like, the thing too is just like, we've talked about this, but like, how much do you actually take from sloppy spring games anyway. Like he's not supposed to look like John Elway out there.
Well, and also coaches can show you whatever they want to show you in a spring game by deciding what they will and won't let the defense do.
But did you see all the people that were breaking down whether that was a good throw?
Yes, right.
like it's like, I don't know. Was it the perfect throw?
But it's all we got, Ari.
It wasn't the perfect throw, but I think that when you go back, and I think the stat is true that their longest pass play of the entire season last year was 36 yards, I think, or 37 yards.
It was brutal. Yes.
It was the most
the fourth pass was a foreign concept to the Michigan Wolverines last year.
If you're a Michigan fan, this is a celebratory day. You have your guy. And like, it might not mean that you're going to the playoff this year, but it's year one. And save for any weird NIL negotiation tactics at the end. And I don't know if this is going to sound mean, but I feel like Michigan's probably going to have it more buttoned up behind the scenes than Tennessee does in terms of, how they're going to deal with this. I think they'll be in a pretty good spot. So, I don't know. Tennessee were pros at this too.
I feel like you're trying to make in a Michigan one of those Michigan man would never jokes. And look,
no, I wasn't.
The kid just signed
a joke. I feel like Michigan's not as out there. Like, let me ask you this, and I don't want to hijack this topic. It's an important topic, but do you think that Tennessee was at all reckless at the beginning, or do you think they were the smartest and best?
Oh, they were on the bleeding edge. Like Michigan was waiting to see what everybody else did and then jumped in.
Yeah, like
Michigan
Tennessee is the beta model.
Michigan with Underwood did the kind of 3.0 version of what Tennessee did with Nico when they signed him out of high school.
Is this a good way to put it? Tennessee was the beta model for NIL and had bugs and quirks. And now that it's gone through it, having been the most aggressive one, they'll probably be more apt to deal with these situations moving forward with what they've learned. Michigan was slower. They developed their software a little bit longer. They didn't come out into the public with it. And now they're probably more efficient.
I love that you're saying it this way. You're using this analogy when it is literally a software developer who underwrote Bryce Underwood.
But also, too, at the same time, that doesn't mean that Tennessee's software isn't completely great and up to speed now, too. But like the peril that they faced with Nico was probably a result of a bug.
Right. And there's probably some stuff in the Bryce Underwood deal that was done last winter that was not in the Nico deal that he was operating under at Tennessee that was done in December of 2022. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. That makes absolute perfect sense. And I was thinking about this too, because I was going to call him the $10 million man, Bryce Underwood. We probably shouldn't do that because people get confused when you do that. They think that means that's what he's getting paid per year. It's not. That's the total deal over the length of the deal.
Yeah. And people got confused with that with Nico too. But let's back to Bryce Underwood though. He's going to start this year, right?
Well, I think the original plan was to bring in Mikey Keene, who'd played in that offense before, who'd played a ton of snaps, and that he would start. And if Bryce Underwood was ready, then he would kind of actually, I bet the plan was kind of similar to what Florida did with Graham Mertz and DJ Lagway last year, and had no choice but to go to Lagway when Mertz tore his ACL. But Mikey Keene got hurt before spring practice. We're not entirely sure when he's going to be back. The thought is he'll be back at some point during the season, but it sure seems now like Bryce Underwood's got to be the guy day one.
Yeah, here's the thing, and I don't know how extensive Mikey Keene's injury is, but once Bryce starts, it doesn't matter what the circumstance of that start is. Once he starts, unless it's an absolute abject failure, which I doubt it will be because he's an extremely talented and gifted player, there's no like putting the
toothpaste back in the tube.
Like, I think that like once the toothpaste is out of the tube, and also too, I don't think Michigan would want that. I think Michigan fans are amped up and excited, and rightfully so. This is the biggest, recruiting win that they've probably had as a program since, JJ McCarthy, and you saw how that turned out. So, and I'm all for it too. Like, the thing with Michigan is like, what are they supposed to be this year, and what are expectations? I think it's a very interesting discussion, and we've talked about it a little bit, but not all the way. But even if it's a team that's supposed to go out and win 8 or 9 games this year, which I think is a reasonable expectation against that schedule, they could win more. But if they win 9 or 10 games this year, maybe, flirt with the playoff in November, that's a successful season in year one of the Underwood experience, in my opinion. So let him go out there, let him get his experience, let the world see him, use him as a recruiting tool, and then, come back in 2026, feeling like you could go win the whole damn thing. Like, to me, like that's the way to go.
Also, okay, I've seen enough with my addict looking at every little snippet of video that I could find. I've already seen enough to know that he has a better arm than every single person that threw a pass for Michigan last year. So it can't get worse than it was last year in terms of the passing game. It will only get better.
Have a better arm than those guys?
No, and neither do I. We're not going to do that. We're not playing that game. But he does. He absolutely does.
Dude, that ball was just a duck, though. That trick ball. I'm kidding.
Yes, it was
fine.
And that's what's interesting. There's a couple other throws. Like there's some pretty basic slants where he's just firing them in there that nobody could have done at Michigan last year.
Yeah.
Like that. You add that into the offense, and suddenly it's a very different offense.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If Michigan, there is a world out there where Michigan doesn't come close to winning 10 games too, right? The thing that I struggle with Michigan, and I want you to help walk me through this. But Michigan won a national championship 2 years ago when I thought it was impossible for a team that was built that way to actually go all the way and win it, right? Michigan captured what I thought was lightning in the bottle in terms of not recruiting top 10 classes on an annual basis, but evaluating and portaling its way to having 20 draftable players on their team. Mm-hmm. If you look at their current team right now, I don't think that they have got 20 draftable players on it in terms of a single year or a 2-year stretch. And I don't know if they're top.
They got some dudes, and they have probably as many future NFL players as most of the other contenders we're talking about, just spread out over the whole roster.
So if you believe that that's who they are, then 10 games I think is a rational expectation. The question that I have and will continue to have with Michigan until they're good again, which maybe this year is, whether or not 2 years ago was the all the stars aligning perfectly for a magical run, and if they're going to dip back to being more what they were for the majority of the Jim Harbaugh era, which is a tough team, a 9-win team that's really good but not great or good enough to beat the elite of the elite, or if they're going to get back to contending for a national championship again. What is your take on that?
I don't think Sharon Moore is going to recruit like Jim Harbaugh did entirely. I think there will be some DNA there, but I do think that Sharon Moore is going to go after more of the top end talent. And look, Jim Harbaugh got some top end talent. JJ McCarthy, Will Johnson, Donovan Edwards. Those are 5-star guys. So I think you're going to see Sharon Moore go after more of those guys. And if he's getting them, and look, we saw with Bryce Underwood that they are willing to pay when they need to pay, then they should be in line with all of the other national title contender type programs that we always talk about.
But then here's the question, because this, you know what that reminds me of? And I know it's completely different time period. And here's the thing. I don't even know if going back in time and using things that happened in 2015, 16, 17, we can learn much from them now because the sport is so different. But remember when Michigan State kind of did...
I knew you were going to bring this up.
But I'm serious. Do you know...
It's not the same thing, though, and I'll tell you why. Because what you were talking... You're talking about when D'Antonio...
When they had...
decided, I'm going to go chase stars. I don't think... I think everybody at Michigan... Because Sharon wasn't at Michigan yet, but he was in the state. Everybody saw that happen and understands you can't completely get away from what you do. And that's what Michigan State was completely abandoning its previous philosophy. I don't think Sharon Moore has to completely abandon this philosophy to get some 5-stars. Remember, Michigan was already getting some 5-stars. So you can keep recruiting the way you were recruiting, keep evaluating the way you were evaluating, just chase a few more that you might not have been able to get before.
Come with me now. Come with me on this. Is Bryce Underwood a departure from how Michigan gets its Michigan men?
Yes.
So how many
they don't typically do last minute flips. Like JJ McCarthy wasn't a last minute flip. We've always you wrote a bunch of stories about the kid. Like he would have gone to Ohio State. They wanted Kyle McCord.
So now, how many departures can Michigan take on an annual basis from the Michigan man pursuit and maintain who it was 2 years ago?
2, 3. And guess what? If it's 2 or 3 5-stars a year, that's all you really need.
And if it's at the most important position, then you're good with that.
Yeah, I'm absolutely good at that because I still want them developing and recruiting offensive linemen the same way they always did, but every once in a while, let's throw someone who's an absolute super freak of nature in there too. By the way, if you're watching on Twitter right now, come join us on YouTube. You watch the whole rest of the show on YouTube. I promise it'll be more fun because you can jump in the chat and yell at us in the chat, which that's usually the most fun part of things. Ari, Bryce Underwood, you mentioned the departure, but where is he? What is he? How different is he? And I think Michael asked an interesting question. This is a good one. Where does Bryce Underwood compare to DJ Lagway coming out of high school in terms of skill set, in terms of readiness? You know, I think it's interesting because DJ Lagway's high school career was more of a slow burn than Bryce Underwood's. DJ Lagway started getting a lot of buzz at the end of his junior year, and actually it continued into his senior year, and he got better during his senior year, but he was already committed to Florida at that point. Bryce Underwood was well known as the top QB in this class, I think as a sophomore in high school.
Yeah. The thing that I'm not sure, and like I sat with DJ Lagway when DJ was in high school. And when you were in the same room as this kid, you could tell that he was a freak of nature. I've never been in the same room as Bryce, and I know that Bryce is actually younger by comparison entering Michigan than DJ was when he got there too, right? Like I think Bryce is 17 still.
He's still 17, yeah.
So if he's still 17, like from a physical standpoint, like I think that the comparison might be a little bit different because I think DJ was further along physically.
Bryce is no slouch physically. I'm glad you brought that up because we have to talk about that. We have to talk about Bryce Underwood, the specimen, because this picture was floating around the internet last week, and not that picture, producer River, that picture, yes. And boy, that launched a lot of takes.
You know what that looks like to me, as somebody who's had, to consider what my belly looks like in every single article of clothing I've worn for the last decade. It looks like he's just wearing shorts and underwear that's too small.
All right, well, that as someone who has had Dunlop disease most of my life, I think you're correct there. Also, this photo is it's a still shot from a video. For those listening in podcast form, it's a picture of Bryce Underwood that circulated on the internet last week. You probably saw it. He's got his practice jersey pulled up Zeke Elliott style, but he's not showing a Zeke Elliott type 6-pack. But it also could be he's in the middle of exhaling, but man, did this thing take off. And because I mentioned Bryce Underwood last week when Sharon Moore went on JD Piquel's show, and I retweeted a clip and said something about Underwood, and everything I got was about this. We're not going to belly shame on this show.
Mm-mm.
God forbid us belly. We have no right to belly shame any human being alive.
Well, not you anymore. You're like, aren't you working on a 6-pack over there? Isn't that like what your goal is? Okay.
I have loose skin. I earned the loose skin. It's my fault. It's my reminder that I could have done this earlier in life and didn't, and chose not to.
You're for a while there, you're like, my goal is to have a 6-pack. Like that.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Like that will never occur to me. Like I just want to wear a large shirt comfortably. But like this is like to me a bad frame, and I think that people love to run away with stuff. But like, let's show the one Bryce posted on his Instagram story. He has a 6-pack. I'm not concerned. Also,
I am not. Stop with the defamation. I'm glad that he had fun with it. But look, If I had a six-pack, I could have fun with that too, because I'd just be posting six-pack pictures all the time.
Also, too, Andy, one time my wife and I were in Malibu and on vacation, and I ate lobster quesadillas, because that sounds incredible, doesn't it? Like, who wouldn't want lobster stuffed quesadillas? And I walked in there one size, and I don't know if there was an ingredient or something in these quesadillas that my body did not agree with, but I had a level of bloat when I walked out of that restaurant that, like, my shirt was too tight now. Like, I felt, and I didn't eat that much. Like, it hit me the wrong way for some reason, and I'll never forget it. And my wife,
the secret ingredient was butter, Ari.
Yeah, but like my body, I don't like bloat like that. I'm just like, my body doesn't change.
Producer River, show the six-pack Underwood picture again. Look at that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think it'll be okay. I people on the internet, you know what my favorite thing too is just like 90% of the people probably who were calling him fat were like, just like,
they're disgusting. They're absolute pigs. I guarantee it.
Yeah, people who call other people's wives ugly, I'm sure, are like, married to absolute dimes behind the scenes. But like, I don't think that the man's got a overweight problem. So
no. And Brian in the chat points out Bryce took off on a scramble in the spring game. The belly is not a problem. No, it is not. He can move. Now, look, I know quarterbacks aren't live. He's fast. Like, you could tell he's fast.
It was a bad picture, or he had some bad lobster quesadillas.
That's true. All right, put the picture away, River. We don't need that picture. There you go.
But like, here's the thing too, and somebody in the chat said this. Like, Julian Sand looks like a middle schooler. Like it doesn't mean anything. Like, let's play this game, because you and I are fortunate enough to be in the same room as a lot of like really good players, like every weekend during the season. Like, what is the best player that you've seen in person that looks like they are just a normal dude?
Jared Lorenzen, may he rest in peace.
No, he was overweight.
Jared Lorenzen was amazing. Like,
but I'm saying, like,
amazing, and he weighed 300 pounds.
You know which one comes to mind? If you would be at the mall and knew nothing about college football, and you just saw Quinn Ewers at PacSun, would you think he was like a potential Heisman candidate? Like, he
Colt McCoy,
like, it doesn't.
Colt McCoy plays in NFL games. And you never know.
And like, I just don't think that people appreciate a lot of times what people actually look like. But you want to know who the actual opposite of that was like just a regular looking dude on TV. And you've been around him, I think, quite a bit. Is Alex Smith. And then you see Alex Smith in person. Alex Smith looks like a Greek god in person. Like, it doesn't always jive back and forth. But like, I think that from the picture that Bryce posted, I'm very comfortably, you could question a lot of things about him. I don't think his physical makeup is on that list.
Not worried about it. I am excited to see him play. I'm excited to see Michigan's offense, because I'm not worried about Michigan's defense. We actually got a good chance to see what this year's version of the Michigan defense would look like in the bowl game last year, because they had a lot of opt-outs. Alabama had a lot of guys healthy and playing, and you got to see the guys who are probably going to start for Michigan this year against some pretty good players for Alabama, and they looked great. Those Michigan players looked like they belong. And so, not worried about the defense. The offense adds Justice Haynes, speaking of Alabama players, but
who also is really, really good in the video game, by the way. People who run with Alabama online just like smoke you with Justice Haynes.
So, if the passing game how much better does the passing game have to get for Michigan to be a 9-10 win type team? Does it have to get 50% better? Because I think there's a possibility that it can get like 200% better, because it was freaking terrible last year.
Andy, it was about as bad as a passing game could be in college football. Let's just call it what it is. And then here's the thing, though. Like, the more I think about this, and we are in, April 21st right now? We're in overthinking season. And the more time that goes by from last year, and now that we're not in the midst of it anymore, the more impressed I am with Sharon Moore's ability to navigate that team with such a deficiency. Like, they were handicapped. They were kneecapped.
Yes. And that's what I was saying at the end of last year. Like,
and what they ended up doing from a season standpoint with that ailment is remarkable. It's like, I mean, the fact that they were like, I know Alabama was what it was, and I don't know exactly what Alabama's effort level was in the bowl game. I don't know if they're but like the fact that Michigan like beat USC, beat Ohio
State,
beat Alabama, like how did they beat Ohio State? Like they did. And like that was with a terrible, terrible offense. Now I know that Mason Graham's not walking through that door again, right? Like I know there's some,
but they still have very good play. Like they have NFL bound players on their defense.
This is a long way of answering your question of like if it's like 70% better, which I think is probably a bona fide like certainty, right? Like there's no way it can't be at least 70% better. They're gonna be a really good team, and they're overall. Their over-under win total this year is 8.5, as River pointed out.
And let me point out, this is not us saying that we think Bryce Underwood is going to win the Heisman and average 350 passing yards a game. This is us insulting last year's Michigan passing game. Like 70% better is probably average compared to most offenses. So if you can get slightly above average, you're talking about a potential playoff team.
Like if their longest passing play was 36 yards, like you don't have to put, Joe Montana in his prime out there. 70% improvement is guaranteed. And I think it's possible that it's 200% improvement and that they're a 10-win team, especially against their schedule. Like I think you could, but like at the same time too, 10-2 or 9-3 against that schedule doesn't mean that they're going to go out and beat Georgia. Right? But the Michigan teams that Jim Harbaugh was being criticized for before they won the national championship, I think should be the goal this year. A 10-2 team.
Well, and also the Michigan teams under Jim Harbaugh that got criticized are probably capable of competing with the national title contenders of now, because it's going to be really hard, and we've talked about this, to have another 2021 Georgia or 2022 Georgia.
And you don't look at that schedule and say there's a game on it that they cannot win.
Agreed. Because they beat Ohio State with the passing game they had last year. Right? Yeah. So if they can beat them with that passing game, they got a shot with what they're going to have this year. So and also, I'm excited to see it.
If there was an Unsolved Mysteries now, which by the way, that show used to bang. I don't know if you watched that.
Robert Stack, baby.
It was scary. It used to scare me when I was a kid, but I was really into it. They should bring that back. Didn't they try to bring it back and it didn't hit right? Like unexplainable things that happen are so fascinating to me. Like that one like field out in Asia somewhere where like the suicide rate is like 9,000% higher than it is everywhere else in the world. Like I don't know why that happens, but I need to know why. The thing with Michigan is they are a 8-4 team with the worst schedule, or 9-3, whatever they went last year, with the worst offense I've ever seen. They beat Ohio State. If there was an Unsolved Mysteries, they should put that on the show. And if the answer to the mystery was they had Mason Graham and Kenneth back there, then like those guys should be first round picks. And I think they will be. So like that is Mason Graham is maybe the most underappreciated player in totality from the last 3 years, because JJ McCarthy gets a lot of shine from that run, and so does Donovan Edwards and some of the guys that helped them win. But like Mason Graham was the engine that made them run, and I hope that and I'm sure he is in Michigan lore and Michigan history, like the commensurate Michigan.
And he's about to get handsomely rewarded because he's going to be drafted very high. I think personally, when we go to the Culver's Great Wisconsin Tailgate and broadcast from there on Thursday, I think Thursday night we will see Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant come off the board. I think both of those Michigan defensive tackles will be first-round picks. And whoever passes, like Kenneth Grant falls to the second round, may God have mercy on your souls. Like, I hope whoever gets him wins 8 Super Bowls. I love Kenneth Grant.
Do you imagine if the same team who gets Mason Graham got Kenneth Grant too?
That would be unfair.
That's the type of situation that like a really well-run NFL organization would figure out a way to do. And then like for the next 7 years, like we'll be talking about like, how did they let this happen?
It's like, well, the Rams did it. They got Jared Verse and Braden Fisk from Florida State and have them on. They're like, oh, look at that. They play really well together. How about that?
But yeah, Michigan, I think, is a very interesting team. And the last thing I'm going to say about them before we move on is, since they went to the Jordan brand, Michigan is in the top 3 without question in uniforms, right? Like they are so clean.
They already were, and
no,
I don't think the Jordan brand changed much in the same uniforms.
The helmets were always great. Everybody loves the helmets. There's no question about that. But when they wore those Adidas jerseys, they were awful. Like Adidas like ruined them. And then they're just like, now they're just classic and clean and beautiful. And like, I love their uniforms.
Well, how will they look with Bryce Underwood throwing it?
19, the number 19 on a quarterback. What do you think?
I'm okay with it.
It's different, isn't it?
It's not the Doug Flutie 22. Yeah, you usually like, because you saw now Peyton Manning had 18 in the pros. And usually you don't go much higher than 18, but
there's only other one quarterback that I can remember being 19. Is that Bernie Kosar? He wore 19, right?
Yeah. Pretty good quarterback. So
yeah. And very comparable talent-wise to Bryce Underwood. In terms
Bernie could move. So
Bernie
won a national championship at Miami, and then
I know, but wasn't Bernie
was a good quarterback
Kosar, like helplessly immobile?
No, Bernie Kosar could move a little bit, but
I thought in the pros, like
Bernie Kosar's biggest problem was they kept running into John Elway in the playoffs,
and that he played for the Cleveland Browns.
That too.
Which also
right, let's talk about our friends at Gametime, Ari.
Yeah,
Gametime is the best place to get last-minute tickets. I am very mad because we have already scheduled a trip out of town this weekend. I just found out I can get Parker McCollum tickets in Gainesville at the O'Connell Center for $30. Parker McCollum, one of the best country artists going right now. $30 on Saturday. I'm mad. But I also found out Bare Naked Ladies coming to St. Augustine next month. I have seen them in concert. They are awesome. You can get in there. I believe $58 is the get-in price on Gametime. Ari, if you wanted to go get some last-minute tickets on Gametime, Kendrick Lamar and SZA at Jerry World on Saturday. You know you want to see Kendrick. You don't want to hear him say A minor in person.
My wife bought tickets on Gametime to the Post Malone concert like a month ago.
Nice.
And the Post Malone concert's on May 9th, and we didn't know it's my dad's birthday. Happy birthday, Dad. Love you. But then we found out that our daughter's dance recital is the same day, and like her like show starts at 6:30 p.m. and she's the 10th act. Which, by the way, and
those dance recitals they go fast, so you'll get to Post. I hope Post is doing the country album, and also I hope your wife used the code Staples when she bought those tickets, because your first purchase on the Gametime app, if you use the code Staples, $20 off. Terms apply, of course. So download the app, use code Staples, $20 off. Hopefully Ari will make it to the Post Malone show. Hopefully he will play Guy for that. Hopefully he will play Devil I've Been. Great song off that country album. And I'm sure he'll play Candy Paint and some of the other,
there's a
White Iverson, the classics.
There's a song on the Post Malone country album called Yours. And
it's singing makes my wife cry every time.
And like I like rock my daughter to sleep to that song. And it's like really emotional. But the in the latest edition of AMIA, why are we doing?
Yeah, please take the advertiser's logo off the screen at that point when Ari asks if Ari is the a-hole.
What are we doing with dance recitals for 3-year-olds starting at 6:30 p.m. on a Friday? Like, I mean, what are we doing? Like, because she's
as someone who's very experienced with this from age 3 to now, as she's about to turn 14.
Yeah, help me out with this.
It's when they can get the theater. That's pretty much it.
Just get the theater on Saturday during the day. They're 3. They go to bed at 8 o'clock.
Well, see, like my daughter's old studio, they had the theater Friday night, and then they had 2 shows Saturday. Or maybe even 3 shows on Saturday. So that's what it is you may not have gotten that show. Like her class is going at that time. There may be another show that has some of the other classes on Saturday.
And so also too, and I'm sure you're exposed to this as well, but dance shoes, no idea how expensive these things were for a 3-year-old.
Ari, you have no clue. Because your daughter's 3. Yeah. My daughter's on point.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Aren't those like
point shoes last like 3 weeks and they cost like $100.
It's electric.
Yeah. It's If you see me selling fruit on the side of the road while also doing this job, it's because I'm trying to pay for point shoes.
How are her toes holding up? She good?
Oh, she is proud of all of the various deformities that it creates. So she's like, her brother comes in with his football bruises, and she's like, "Oh yeah, look at this," and pulls out her foot, and it's like, "Okay, you win." So
that's terrifying.
There you go. All right, we got to talk about Colorado. Very interesting. We're done with the retired jerseys. We talked about the retired jerseys last week. Deion said we wouldn't even be talking about Shedeur getting his jersey retired if his last name wasn't Sanders, and Deion was right, but not in the way he thought, because Travis Hunter's jersey gets retired, no problem. Shedeur's jersey, I don't know. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about what Jordan Seaton, the offensive tackle from Colorado, said last week when Colorado's starting center went into the transfer portal. Jordan Seaton tweeted, "Can't even build a true brotherhood anymore. Too much I and me. Ari sent this to me immediately. You have takes."
I do, but I didn't think they were that hot, and then people went freaked out because, I wanted to argue with you too, so I'm going to let you go, and then I'm going to counterpunch. Yeah. So here's the thing. Before I tell you what my take is on this, Jordan Seaton is a 5-star player who came to Colorado out of high school and is going to be a multi-year starter. So this may not even apply to him specifically, because he is a person that kind of did it the old-fashioned way. Now, I don't know if he would have ended up at Colorado, in any other regime, obviously, because Deion Sanders is the draw there. But how can you be worried about brotherhood and creating something that lasts in relationships when you also opted to play for a program that's maybe amongst the most transient in college football? Like, it's like, and I'm not even saying that he doesn't have a right to crave that or want that. But at the same time, you have your, YouTube channel, you have, your social media handles on the back of your jerseys for practice. Their number one selling point as a program is to come build your personal brand. They axed, 80% of their roster when he got there, and have been very, and I think the churn is slowing down as the build is getting more advanced, but they do churn their roster quite a bit. And you have players coming to Colorado for specific reasons that aren't go play with your brothers on Saturday. Now, that might be less true everywhere, because I do think that NIL and branding and all those things are important to everybody. As we just got done talking about Michigan, which was supposedly the poster child for brotherhood, having a $10 million quarterback over the contract. But like, at the same time, it's just like every single Colorado graphic, every single visit graphic has primetime written all over it. Like, their coach is the most showy and most me person there is. So it just, I thought it was kind of a bizarre thing to hear from somebody at Colorado, because you pick Colorado for your own personal interest, maybe more than any other program in college football. And I didn't think that was crazy. Am I nuts?
I'm going to push back on you, because
the whole program.
Jordan Seaton didn't.
Yeah.
Jordan Seaton's like the one person who can make this statement. Like, he's the one person there who can make this statement, because he did sign out of high school.
But Jordan Seaton making this statement is me buying a minivan and saying, "God damn it, why doesn't the convertible top come down?" I'm not saying he can't say it, but like,
you're saying that Colorado didn't go crazy, that Colorado went Colorado.
But I'm saying, if that's something that you're concerned with, then that's something that you should have considered when you were making your decision. You can't make a decision based on brotherhood and teammates and building a bond while also opting for the place that less accentuates that.
Well, here's the thing. He's actually playing for a fairly normal team on that front in terms of movement now. Yeah. Definitely not normal the previous 2 years.
What do you think even triggered that?
Yeah, I went and looked up the numbers, because I was like, okay, are they still doing the kind of churn they were doing? Because if they are, then he really shouldn't say anything.
There's no way that they could continue the pace that they were in year one.
No, but they have gone back to the pack much quicker than I thought they would. So transfers in this offseason 21, transfers out 27. That's not that different from most programs in the power conferences. There's a few, obviously Clemson's going to be different, but that's not that different than most programs. But to understand how different it is for Colorado, they had, hold on, it's coming up. It's a big number. They had 43 in and 45 out last year. And then the year before, Deion's first year, they had 50 in and 55 out. So they have actually moved back to the pack a lot faster than I thought they would. They are trying.
Andy, the 2020 thing? Is that where most teams are?
It's where most power conference teams are.
Okay, because 20 seems like a lot still. That's
nope, it's not.
Roster. Yeah.
So, yeah, it is fairly normal. It's maybe kind of high side of normal, but it's not that different. I'll give you an example. Like Texas Tech, who we have as the number one transfer portal class, they have 18 in and 25 out.
But
Colorado's 20 and 27.
If Texas Tech had a player a year from now who came in as part of this transfer class, now that the oil money's in,
but he didn't. Jordan Seaton had come in as a transfer.
Okay. But Jordan Seaton came in when the program was. If a freshman who signed with Texas Tech this year out of high school complained about transient nature of the sport when he chose a program that operated that way, it would.
I like this. Ari, I'm sorry. I like this. I think Jordan Seaton is the one person who's qualified to say this at Colorado.
But if that was what he was worried about, then why isn't he at Clemson right now? He was a 5-star.
But I like that this matters to him at Colorado, because how does Colorado become what you keep saying it can become? Is you have people like this who establish something there. That's how it becomes what you keep saying. Well, if Deion does this, and if Deion recruits this way, and if Deion does, okay, well, guess what,
Andy?
That's what they're doing.
Don't drag me into the pits of hell, because I can't go on that rant again. If you're more concerned with this comment being the thing that brings you to the Brotherhood part than the thing that they should be doing, which is getting a bunch of Jordan Seatons. Don't make me do this again, please.
I love when you do it.
Podcast, but
I know it drives you crazy. I just like pushing the Ari yells about Deion not going on high school visits. But
you don't say 2 weeks ago when I'm screaming about recruiting high school that they don't have to do it that way anymore, and then take the side of Brotherhood is awesome at Colorado because that's exactly what I've been saying. Like, yeah. You're right. If this statement means that they're going to go try to get 7 Jordan Seatons a year, then I'm all for it. But like, if you're Jordan Seaton and you epitomize what building out of high school represents, then don't be upset when your teammates that came to Colorado for very different reasons aren't seeing eye to eye with that. And also, too, like, say what you want about like Deion Sanders, the guy's a genius. He's a very showy, flashy, me individual, is he not? That's how Colorado is in the position that it is to begin with. Like,
well, as producer River pointed out, Jordan Seaton committed on undisputed. So not your typical. But again, I don't care. He signed out of high school. He wants to build something there. Like Jordan Seaton, I'm sure, has had opportunities to go elsewhere. He's really good.
Jordan Seaton went to Hawaii on vacation and complained about how you can't ski. No?
Listen, he's a 20-year-old.
Okay.
And I don't mind this. Like, you think it's dumb that he's saying it. I don't mind this. And I think
he's a very good
player. Only
player.
Helps Colorado to have someone who's really good, who came out of high school, who believes this way. You kind of need those people if you ever want to build anything. That's how you build something, is you get people like that who believe in what you're doing, who love it, who don't understand why everybody else doesn't want to be there.
And then if Jordan Seaton's ideologies in life are contagious and it has a lasting impact on Colorado, what's step 2 of that build?
Keep building.
How?
Keep getting more of those guys.
Oh, yeah?
I know.
Okay. How?
Offer them out of high school. You don't have to go to their high school. Listen, I agree with you that yes, he would recruit better if he went to if he did the home visits.
You know that scene
he's not going to do it no matter how many times you yell at him about it. Get over it.
Like where Jim Carrey is like just like going.
He's not going to do it
right now.
You know what else? You know what else Deion's not going to do?
Huh.
He was on the We Got Time podcast.
Yeah.
He got asked about something else. Hold on. It's coming. Or not. Producer River has that clip. Maybe.
Let me.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know if we have the clip. Do we have the clip or not?
I think what producer River's trying to do is trying to like save me from losing my job right now.
No, I'm gonna listen. I'm dragging you into the pits of hell one way or the other.
This is an unserious podcast right now, by the way.
What is going on here? We agreed prior to the show. We were running this clip. I feel like producer River is trying to help Ari in ways he doesn't need to help him.
Trying to. Okay, here we go.
Well, I am trying to help, but it was processing. Took a while. It's ready now.
Okay.
Do we want to play it?
Oh
Okay.
yeah, we do.
Here we go.
No, I don't do that. What be in your head, since you don't watch it? What be in your head when you pleasure yourself?
I don't pleasure myself. I've never in my life pleasured
In your life.
Never in my life.
All your
God is my witness.
I'm so
In
confused.
Jesus' name.
I'm to strike you down. You got to strike you down.
Hey, I'm telling you.
No.
I'm telling you the truth.
Why do I really believe him?
Okay, now see, my
ain't never played it.
my next statement gonna sound arrogant.
What is it?
I never had.
Oh.
There you go. Never had.
See, he was just setting up the punchline, Ari.
I mean,
that is the best way. Like, and the ultimate Deion response to that. Like, I never had to. He set it up perfectly. Do I believe him? No, not in the least.
I'm trying my best here. Should I just stop? Should we just go to the next thing? Like, Deion Sanders probably doesn't have to for a long period of time in your life, but puberty happens when you're very young.
Can we have a segment? Chat, you tell me. Do we need a recurring segment where I push buttons on Ari that I know will cause him to go insane and say things that will get him fired, and just watch him try to exercise self-control? Because we've done it twice now with me suggesting that Deion is building something at Colorado, and then Ari gets mad because he's not doing in-home visits. And then
it's not even, no, it's not. You always miss. Oh, God. Go to the school. Don't go to the school. It's just prioritize that as part of your program, Bill.
Ari is trying to go back to that because he does not want to talk about the other clip.
The other clip is, I don't think that's possible for a human male for that to be true. That's all I'm going to say.
Probably
because
not.
You weren't in the NFL when you were 13 and 12 or whatever age you found yourself. Like, it's not. I can
didn't already have that much swag. I got you. Understood.
NFL Pro Bowler and Hall of Famer might not have to when they're older. That cannot be true. That's all I'm going to say. It's just not true. Like, I'm like,
okay,
yeah. It's
all
like,
the man a liar. How dare you?
I feel like a battery operated toy having water poured on it right now. Like I don't know what, because we talk about this behind the scenes. The thing that you guys need to know about this is that we try really, really hard and discuss how we can be as a show, right? And yes. I think that there are other very successful podcast shows and shows that are more forthcoming and more out there with what they talk about. We have journalism backgrounds where we came from the New York Times and they had to change. I said the word crazy in a story and they took it out because it was offensive to people with mental illness. So we are in the spectrum of how far can we go and how can I?
Well, and also people come here to hear us talk about college football, and it's a pretty hard record scratch if some of our off-air conversations were to make it onto the air.
But if you had to estimate what percentage of me the audience sees, what would you say?
I think they are only getting the tip of the iceberg. I think they're getting 5% of Ari.
Right. And
the other 95% is depraved.
And if what if they got 80 or 20% of Ari? How far can you go before the show we can't do it? That's the thing.
We can do it, but we're doing it on our own and we're not collecting a salary.
Good podcasts make the listener, and I actually feel like the people who listen to us in their car are like part of our like podcast family. Like I view that.
Yeah.
That's not like some corny thing that like I hate corniness. I actually hate the word brotherhood when it comes to college football. Like it's like I don't want to hear all the same.
You really hate Duke basketball, then, right?
Iron sharpening iron and all that stuff. Like it's like I hate cliche. But I do actually want our podcast to feel like you're at a bar with your friends, right? That's the like the mission statement for me of what this is. If I talked about what you just showed at the bar with my friends, that would be a very rampant and healthy discussion. And I can't have that with you right now because we're in this position and I don't know how much of that I'm allowed to have. Like, I think we should have like an off-season meeting with Shannon to talk about that. Like, how far can I push this conversation? Because like I have given you 1% of what I feel about it. And I think I'm going to stop at 1%.
Goat Dog and Snap saying our friend T-Bob, Zach and Goat Dog saying our friend T-Bob on his show Snaps does not worry about that. Blows right through the line. So
do we need like how much decorum do we need?
It's a good question. It is a legitimate question because I do think we have a significant number of people who probably listen with their kids in the car. And we would have like I feel like we would have to seriously warn them because like, you know, like I go on Pardon My Take and Big Cats come on here. They're very clear about what they are as a show. You know what you're getting. So if you're listening to that with your 6-year-old in the car, like that's your fault, not their fault. But we don't put the E on it because we don't cuss that much.
At the same time, though, Pardon My Take is the most successful college sports podcast on earth.
Well, it's not a college sports podcast. It's just a sports
podcast on earth.
Yeah.
And like people manage to listen to it without their children in the car. So like, I don't know. And it's like, and I'm not even saying that should be the show all the time, but like we get off topic and like, this is a very funny thing. Like say what you want about that clip because it's wildly inappropriate. It's hilarious. Like Deion Sanders saying that is funny.
And he set it up so well. And I don't know, like, I want to know
going before it started too.
Did the host of the show tell him they were going to bring that up, or did he manufacture? Because the setup punchline of that, if he did that on the fly with no prep, not knowing that question was coming, was pretty spectacular.
Yeah, I just don't think it's physically possible.
Oh,
from an anatomy standpoint.
Listen, most of our listenership is male. I think most people are just nodding and agreeing.
Yeah.
Nodding and agreeing. Nodding and agreeing. All right. One more thing before we go. And if you're wondering why the hell haven't these guys talked about this, it's because we had a whole show on it last night. I left Easter dinner early to record this. Nico Iamaleava is now at UCLA. If you want to hear more in-depth thoughts on it, we did a whole emergency show. It's on the podcast feed. It's also on the On3 Sports YouTube channel. And we talked about all the different things. The thing that we got to at the end, Ari, that I keep coming back to that I think is really interesting is I think we really are going to talk more about UCLA this year.
There's no question. That's not how could you? Nico might be a weekly segment.
But we've seen players go to schools and then just disappear. But this is why I'll say this. Tell me if I'm wrong here about Nico. And this is now that the news is settled and all this, we can really autopsy this entire situation. Is it just me, or is Nico part of that club of certain people? Deion Sanders being one of them, like Tim Tebow was one of them, where if you talk about them, people will listen, people will watch, kind of no matter what you say. They just trigger people.
I don't know if Nico himself triggers people, like him as a human. Like, it's like, if you've ever watched him talk or been around him, he's like a nice.
He's very quiet and unassuming. Yeah,
quiet and unassuming. Exactly. People are very fired up about the direction in which college football is headed. Some people think the game is being ruined. Whether you agree with that's not important, but a lot of people think that NIL is the bane of their existence. And he epitomizes what people, a large portion of our audience and college football fans believe, which is being greedy and money hungry and NIL driven is the enemy of college football. And now, whether he likes it or not, he epitomizes that. And by epitomizing it, your story now is intertwined with how people feel like it's going to play out. So people are going to watch him on Saturdays or are going to pay attention to him on Saturdays as a cautionary tale or an interested party to see what NIL hungry people do. And there might be Schadenfreude involved, which is people are rooting against him and want to show the world that being this way is the wrong way to be. And there might be people who root for him because they believe that he was worth more than he was being paid. Maybe that's a smaller percentage of people, but there are people out there that think he deserved to try to use his leverage, and they're going to see how it plays out. But I think that like the Nico story wasn't just where's he going to end up. The Nico story now is the bad business practices of his team going to play out. The season might have ended of the television show, but season 2 is coming out, and season 2 is coming out in October and September, and people are going to be paying attention to it. So this isn't like Narcos after Pablo Escobar died. Like we're still very much into the meat of the story here. And I think that Nico, like River, come on up here for a second. Are you going to pay attention to Nico next year? And maybe you're the wrong person.
Oh, and every Tennessee fan around will Nico watch. They do it to Butch Jones. I mean, they'll do it to anybody that's been at Tennessee before.
And maybe
I don't think they watch Arkansas State games that closely.
Well, they don't watch them.
The Nico hate watching will be more severe.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, are you rooting against him?
No, I'm not. I hope he performs well, to be quite honest. I hope he performs to what we think he is capable to perform.
I think that's an atypical response that you'll get from a Tennessee fan, by the way.
Well,
But
you're
you're generally a very nice person, River.
Well, thank you. I mean, I'm not going to prey on his downfall or anything. I mean, his situation was messed up, and hopefully the grass is greener for him.
Yeah.
Oh, the grass at the Rose Bowl is
The grass
definitely
is
greener.
like,
It's the most beautiful
greener.
grass in the world.
But the college football grass of Neyland Stadium is pretty green. So I don't know.
Yes.
I don't know how it's going to play out. But like when you say, are we going to talk about UCLA? Yeah. And also, too, the thing that we haven't spent enough time talking about, which is what if it works? Like everybody's like, oh, he went to UCLA. The team's terrible. He's making less money and he's going to get his ass kicked by Ohio State next year. But like, what if they're 9-3 and he has a great year? Like that could happen, right? I don't know.
Absolutely. And then the thing he wanted, which is a high draft position, big money in the NFL, that happens for you. If you elevate them to that level, that happens for you. So it's going to be an interesting story one way or the other. And I think you're right. I think you're going to have a lot of Tennessee fans hate watching, and not just Tennessee fans, because there are a lot of people, like you said, who look at NIL as the downfall of college football and him as an example of all the worst aspects of it. So I do think that there's going to be quite an audience for it. All right, let's talk about another quarterback in the portal, Steve Angeli. So Pete Nakos called me this morning and said that he and Steve Wiltfong were trying to figure out where Steve Angeli was visiting, because they'd heard he was visiting a power conference school, trying to figure out where he was visiting. They enlisted me to call one school to check and see if it was that school. It was not that school. And Steve Wiltfong has solved the mystery. Former Notre Dame quarterback Steve Angeli is visiting Syracuse. Now, we know Fran Brown won't be giving anybody $2 million. He made that abundantly clear last week.
I thought that Syracuse might have been a potential landing spot for Nico.
I don't think they were going to pay for that.
Yeah.
Now, they have already named a starter at Syracuse. They have already named the starter, the LSU transfer Ricky Collins. So whether this means that job is now an open competition again, or they're bringing in Steve Angeli and be like, look, we've already named our starter. If you'd like to come here, you can come here. But I don't know about you, Ari. I'm assuming negotiations with Fran Brown are just a little bit different than with everybody else, because he just doesn't seem to put up with the same kind of BS or throw out some of the same BS that these other coaches do.
But my understanding is that Steve Angeli goes to Syracuse with the understanding that he's going to be the starter. Like, I don't think that he's going to transfer somewhere where he has to ride the bench, because he would ride the bench at Notre Dame. He loved Notre Dame. He wanted to be there. Why would he go be a backup at Cuse?
Because maybe there's not a place you can be a starter right now.
then I would have assumed if. So you think that it's possible he went into the portal, thought he was going to find a starting spot, and is going to find that he can't be a starter anywhere, and is going to.
Well, it's sort of like I'm assuming Nico went into the portal thinking 30 schools would be bidding for him, and it didn't turn out that way. Like the market for quarterbacks in April is not robust.
Yeah.
It's not the same as a defensive tackle. Like a defensive tackle can go into the portal and have 4 schools bidding on him immediately.
Yeah.
But that's just not how it works at quarterback, because you invest in your quarterback early. You want that person in for spring practice. So I don't know what the real story here is. We'll find out. I mean, he's visiting. It doesn't mean he's going there.
Yeah.
But obviously Syracuse did really well with Kyle McCord last year. So we'll see what happens. Another piece of news. We've got Oklahoma defensive tackle David Stone. Went into the portal, now is out of the portal. He's staying at Oklahoma. So that was not a
sooner bred, and when I die, I'll be sooner dead.
There you go. 5-star recruit, was a freshman last season, played some. They were hoping to, that he was going to take the next step in his evolution this year. So he will continue to play for Oklahoma, which you are very excited about. You think is going to be one of the more interesting teams in the country this season.
The SEC is fascinating this year, and I'm just a little tenor, but like I'm excited. I'm excited for a lot of the teams in the SEC this year to see, what they turn into. And like Oklahoma is a program that has a long storied history of being consistently good. And I think that the notion that they're going to stink this year because they weren't very good last year is a fool's errand. I don't know that means they're going to be great or against that schedule if they're going to go win 11 games, but I think they're going to be much better than they were last year and potentially a pain in the ass for everybody on their schedule.
Well, that's like an 8-4 or 9-3 Oklahoma is a problem for somebody who might be making the playoff.
If they go 8-4 or 9-3 against that schedule, I think that they belong on the same field as just about anybody in the sport. So
correct.
And here's the thing. I am very, very like if John Mateer would have gone to Miami, I would be like all in on Miami right now. Like where John Mateer went was going to move the needle for me because I watched a lot of him and I've watched a lot of him since. I don't think people appreciate how good he is yet.
Right. He's very good. They add Jade Knott. They're better on the offensive line because a lot of what the offensive line with Oklahoma was. They had guys that they'd signed out of high school who probably weren't quite ready yet, who are probably more ready now. And they messed up early in NIL. So their classes of 21 and 22. So when Texas was loading up on really good offensive linemen out of high school, Oklahoma was not handling NIL properly. They were not making the kind of offers you need to make to get those guys. And so they basically punted on 2 classes of offensive linemen. Offensive linemen are not microwavable, ready products. Jordan Seaton came in and started at Colorado right away. Most of them can't. So you've got to develop them. I do think they're going to be better. I think it's they've had some time now for the 23 classes and the 24 classes to develop. And then we'll see receiver. It sucks that Giovanni Gibson got hurt.
Oklahoma quarterbacks last year, Michael Hawkins Jr. and Jackson Arnold, only threw for more than 200 yards twice in a football game all year. As we talk about Michigan's offense being fractured, Oklahoma's offense was pretty fractured, maybe for different reasons, because I don't know that it was completely incompetent quarterback play, but I think it was obviously a rash of injuries, but also weak offensive line play. And the 2 games that they threw for more than 200 yards were against Maine, which doesn't count. And then the other one was against South Carolina, and they lost 35-9.
Yeah, they threw for 200 yards because South Carolina had a huge lead and was just sitting on it the whole game.
Right. So, and then here's the thing, though. They only were not in 3 games this year that they played. They were in every game that they played. And one was to Texas, one was to South Carolina, and the other one was to LSU. All of which were, fairly good to great teams. So if they were a complete dumpster fire last year, which is, losing, what was it, 7 games last year? I think that they could lose 3 or 4, be much improved, and beat teams that people don't anticipate Oklahoma could beat this year. So they are much better from a personnel standpoint than they were last year. I thought they were competitive in most games that they played, despite the fact that they were completely killed by injury. They are a team that I would buy into. So, and I think Brent Venables is a good coach. I know people think he stinks right now, and like everybody thinks that what happened last year is true forever, but like I don't think he's a bad coach. So, I'm not a Oklahoma truther, but I think that they have a shot to do something this year that people aren't on anyone's radar right now.
Well, and that's the thing. There's a lot of that in the SEC, and then there's a lot of teams that we're assuming are going to be playoff teams. And
some of those teams, Andy, will be bad. Some of them will be bad. Like, I mean, between Florida, Oklahoma, Alabama,
Auburn,
like some of these teams are going to be bad, but some of them are going to
some of them are going to be surprisingly good. You and I have said we think Auburn could be very good this year.
Yeah.
And
maybe Auburn will be terrible and Oklahoma will be good, or Oklahoma will be terrible and Auburn will be really good. But like, they're not all going to just stink again.
Correct. Exactly. There will be some changes, and that's the fun part. All right. Tomorrow, 10 quarterbacks that we haven't gotten much of a taste of yet that I am very, very excited to see. Plus, we're going to talk some draft. Also, later in the week, Ari, I want to talk about the guys that we're going to be talking about for the draft next year. Like, who's going to have a huge year in college football this year so that we're talking about them as first rounders next year.
Hey,
we'll talk about all of that this week. We'll talk to you tomorrow.